friends, welcome to this class. We're going to paint this seascape. I actually have painted similar scenes in the past. If you're looking for something bigger to paint, something where I focus more on the grasses and the shadows on the sand, then I'll try to remember to attach these links to the post. So we're gonna divide this painting into some parts. We have like the sun, right? Actually, this is upside down. Oops. Here you go. That makes sense, doesn't it? All right. That definitely makes more sense now. So what we could do is use some masking fluid for watercolors and apply it toward the sun. Just grabbing my masking fluid and then the reflections that we see over the water. So I'm grabbing like an old brush I do not care about, dipping it in water, wiping it on a towel, and then I'm going to grab some masking fluid. And this is for the sun area here. And then the reflections over the water. There you go. This will not take long to dry. So I'm going to clean this brush quickly. So we're going to paint, focus on painting the sky first with the water. And then once this dries, we'll add the grasses and sand. So we're gonna wet it first. This is my flat 24 brush. This is Songbird. And yes, they're made by Da Vinci, but designed by me and Da Vinci, these brushes. So here we go. I'm wetting it more than I need. Why I don't mind that yellow will go over the sand is because when you look at the sand, actually, you see the yellow reflecting over. This is the back side of the collection, cold pressed, because the front side is too smooth, so I'm using the rougher side, so the back side of the paper. And it works pretty good actually for these. It works pretty good. So I'm just gonna wet it, not a minute. And we're gonna focus on adding the blues first. So we're gonna go from the top down, blending colors on the paper. We want to see the separation of colors, so you don't want to overly blend the colors when you grab them from your palette, because that can quickly end in muddy colors on the paper. All right. So I'm going to grab a smaller brush. This is my flat 3/4 golden 2. I'm going to grab, actually I have cobalt blue here from a different painting. Cobalt blue, phthalo blue, and then let's grab a little bit of this is quinacridone red, and if I want it darker, then I'll grab more of the quinacridone red and thicker paint. Right now this is more like a milk-like ratio. Where do I see that yellow coming up? Like it starts like right here, so I'm gonna leave some spaces for that. And then I have to start adding the yellows, but first a little thicker phthalo blue with a quinacridone red, make it a little darker from the top. So red will make it darker. And thicker paint means like a heavy, not heavy cream, actually half and half like ratio. I think it makes more sense. If there's too much paint, I'm just gonna wipe the brush on a towel. So something like this. A little more. I don't feel like this is dark enough compared to the reference. All right, I'm gonna clean this brush, put it away, and I'm gonna grab my quill size 2, not the long quill, but the quill for the clouds and the yellow parts. So there's my imidazolone yellow with a little bit of iso yellow. There's the sun area, there's the water, and this is where I can go up there, but I need a little bit of red as well. And this is where I can see some of these clouds. So if you go very gently, you will not see that green, shade of green, right? Because when you mix yellow with blue together, you create a shade of green. So quinacridone red, some of the iso yellow. This became very bright. It's because of the iso yellow. And then let's see, where do I want the darks or the orange shade? Something like this. maybe more of the imidazzle yellow, something like that. Maybe some of the red, blue, yellow together. We could actually add like regular clouds. When you blend the three colors together, yellow, blue, red, you create a shade of gray, and that's the gray you actually want to use to create like shadows for the clouds. So I want a little more blue with this, and go back, add some dark. So it's a little different than the reference. So you can follow or do up to this moment if you don't want like clouds like this. I just feel like it's pretty. So now I'm gonna grab a little more of the blue, and this is like a damp brush almost with a little bit of cobalt blue, just like we see some blue there as well. Now, do I have enough color? I guess I should have a little more yellow, but it's a tricky one because this is already too dry almost. I'm gonna go through it with a damp brush, both of these yellows, just to travel through. It should be more yellowish. The same thing here. And that's it for this part. I'm gonna wait for this to dry. Once this is dry, then we can work on the sand. Yeah, we're gonna paint the sand. All right, my friends, so we are going to paint now the sand. So we're gonna wet it first. We're gonna paint it wet on wet. Make sure the paper's wet. I'm sorry, dry. Make sure everything has dried. So up to here, I'm gonna wet it. And then you can go over a little bit these areas where we have the grass. I'm gonna paint it wet on wet as well at the grasses. One more time, just wetting. This is very small, so we can't get caught in like trying to match the the reference to our painting or our painting to the reference. It's not that important. It's all about light and shadows. Let's go with a smaller flat brush. This is my flat 3/4. I'm gonna grab some of this yellow ochre with quinacridone red first. This is where the grass is gonna be. So very kind of, it's like I don't want to spend too much time here, and I know that this is all bluish, so we are going to add some blue tones in a second. But first, some of the quinacridone red with that yellow, yellow ochre. Yep, yellow ochre. We can go over the grass parts too. And then clean your brush. And just like we see in the reference, this is all like water-like ratio or milk-like ratio. Just like we see in the reference, we have these blue tones. I went over. I shouldn't be going over. So we can add some shadows right away. So cobalt blue, quinacridone red, actually. So this is like the shadowy colors that we're adding, and not everywhere, just in some parts. So now let's grab a different brush. I'm gonna grab my long quill size 2. A little more of that actually ISO yellow. I'm sorry, ISO yellow, I keep saying that. This is yellow ochre here. And then cobalt blue, some quinacridone red, just so this is a little darker here. Just kind of dab on it a little bit. All right, cleaning this brush. So now I'm gonna grab a little bit more of the yellows with some green. So these are gonna be the areas where we have there's a little hill. Also with the green foliage, yellow for undertones, and then grab right away some of the green. And then we're gonna make it darker. So more like a half and half like ratio. And grab the browns as well. So Van Dyke brown, sap green, some of the phthalo blue. And when you grab these colors, try not to mix them like on the palette. Just grab them very quickly so you can see and show that separation of colors. And then go over a little bit where we have the sand. We don't have to like fill the whole thing right away. Something like this. Not too close, I guess I need to leave some spaces there. more of the darks. Van Dyke brown, maybe even indigo, and some quinacridone red, but too much red. Neutralize it with the Van Dyke brown, some indigo. This is an evening scene, so it should be really darker. And then we're gonna grab like a different brush. I'm gonna wipe this brush first on a towel, just pull it. Even wipe it more. Just pull it toward that middle section. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a little more color when we do this pulling. But creamy paint. This should be like creamy paint now. If we're doing this pulling with a damp brush, sort of like a damp brush. We're gonna add some sticks in a second. So clean your brush first, and then grab a rigger brush if you have a rigger brush. And this is gonna be like creamy Van Dyke brown here, some of the quinacridone red, move it over where you have the blue, some green, and then we're gonna pull it away from this. This is still wet. We're gonna add some plants just like we see it. The plants are gonna go up higher over the sky. And you can just pull it like this to create grass strokes. And then if you're going directly from the middle sections here, make sure the paint feels creamy. So very creamy paint, like this. Because this way the paint won't spread much and you have the most control. So more of that creamy paint on the tip of my rigger brush. And going back here. Now I should add some shadows and quickly. This can wait basically like the grass plants because this is still wet. I'm just going to use up the paint I have on my brush and I'm going to show you how we're going to add the shadows. And this will come back here and add more of this creamy paint, okay? Actually first a little more here. This one a little more. Okay. Cleaning my rigger brush, I want you to grab like a smaller brush. Actually round 8 will be fine. Grab some of this cobalt blue with some quinacridone red, some yellow. So yellow, blue, red, your gray. And just like we see these footprints, right? You're just gonna create like these shapes. Now, I want you to think about the perspective because the footprints or the way the sand is aligns, these spots are larger in the foreground, right? And smaller in the background. So we just want a little bit of that. Now with the tip of your brush, you can use a smaller brush or you can just use like a round 8 like I am using. Preferably you want that yellow ochre that we used. And just a little bit. We don't need to do too much. Always less is better with watercolors. That's just my idea. I grabbed a little bit of orange, so orange would be red plus yellow. Just to add some more of that here. All right, I'm gonna clean this brush and back to the rigger brush. If I, let's say, want to add more, this is like too brown. It needs to be darker, basically I need to show that there's some blue. Well, my scene here is a little too light for like that kind of sunset, but I'll try to add a little more darks. So creamy paint and just adding it through here and adding those grasses like red, brown, green, of course. The brown can be easily created if you're just using red and green, then you create a shade of brown. This side is more like about these grasses. So you're pulling away from the wet areas. And then more of that. Going in a little bit and then more plants. Now let's quickly grab some of that Van Dyke brown, but it should have some of the red and blue. Some sticks, let's say, or there's maybe some grass or something. Again, think about the perspective. Everything in the foreground right here would be bigger, larger than all the objects in the far background. So we have to think about that. And then let's say I want some green, but it has to be creamy paint. Anything I'm adding now, it just has to be creamy paint. Otherwise the paint will spread too much and I'll just create a bloom, for example. So this is like creamy paint and pulling over these areas. I don't know if I like that one. Maybe I'll try to do something else out of it. All right, I think that's plenty. Plenty of playing with it. Maybe slightly a little more here. I grabbed Van Dyke Brown and Indigo just to make some parts a little darker. So there's a nice balance. And now we have to wait for this to dry. And then we will remove the masking fluid. What is it that I have here? Something got in there. All right, and then it's just gonna be this part, which is painting the sun, adding some yellows. So let's walk away from it and let it dry. All right, my friends, so this is almost done. So let's just remove the washi tape. I'm sorry, the masking fluid. And this is just the pickup cement eraser that I use for that. So how light is that sun? Well, it should have a little bit of yellow there. I do like how light it is. So I'm just gonna wet more than I need. So go on the outside very gently so you don't reactivate colors. And then grab a little bit of that yellow and gently like touch the sun plus the reflections, just a little bit. So it's not so bright white because it doesn't look as natural. And that's it. So unless we add birds, that's it for this class. Thank you so much for your time and please let me know if you have any questions.